Hello students and namaste everyone. Our today's topic for your standard 9th is English figures of speech. In our previous lecture we had seen what is the meaning of figures of speech, and even we had seen the simple or the basic level of figure of speech. That is 8 different figures of speech we had seen. That is alliteration, repetition, interrogation, exclamation, simile, metaphor, then personification and hyperbole. So these were the basic levels, simplest form of figures of speech. Now we'll move towards the another part of the figure of speech, right? We'll try to understand some more figures of speech and proceed with this topic, right? So the first figure of speech which we'll study today is apostrophe. Okay, so let us find out that. Right, so this will be our 9th number of figure of speech, which will be apostrophe. Apostrophe is a figure of speech wherein we can relate this figure of speech with personification. Why? Because in personification we had seen what is personification. So basically we had seen that it was a figure of speech wherein non-living things or inanimate objects are given human qualities. So when any non-living thing or inanimate object is given the human quality, it is known as personification. So even this figure of speech, that is apostrophe, is bit related to that only, right? So I'll take it, means I'll explain you the difference between both. Here also the poet, right, so talks about the inanimate or non-living things, right? So here what happens in this figure of speech, the inanimate or non-living things are directly addressed by the poet as if they are living. Again, apostrophe, right? So apostrophe means what? It is a figure of speech wherein the poet has directly addressed. Directly addressed means what? It means that the poet is directly talking, right, with a non-living or inanimate objects as if they are living. So when such kind of thing is noticed in the poem, we term it as apostrophe, right? So let me write it down on the board and give you one example to understand that. Okay, here an inanimate object or non-living thing is directly addressed as if living thing, as if they are living thing, right? So apostrophe simply means an inanimate object or non-living thing, right, are addressed by the poet as if they are living thing. Okay, so we'll take one example for that. So let us see that example. Okay, example is, O death, have you no pity? Okay, so the example is, O death, have you no pity? Means what, right? So when we are given this line in the poem, we read it out as, "O death, have you no pity?" That means when we read this line, we come to understand that death is a non-living thing or inanimate object, okay, and it is directly addressed. Directly addressed means what? Again I'll explain you. We can feel that the poet is directly talking with the death, as if, "O death, have you no pity?" Right? So that is how the poet is directly addressing the non-living or inanimate objects as if they were living thing. So when such kind of lines are given in your poem, they are said to be apostrophe. Okay, it is known as apostrophe. So I hope so this figure of speech is clear to you all. Okay, next figure of speech which we'll see is okay, there is one similar word, right? This is apostrophe. There is one more figure of speech which is known as Anastrophe. So I'll take both of them together. The reason is that you will not get confused in your exam, right? So usually the students, they get confused in apostrophe and Anastrophe. So earlier only I told you that if you want to remember, you can relate this figure of speech, that is apostrophe, with personification, right? So in personification the word starts with P, and again in apostrophe we find a word a letter P over here, right? So you can relate that personification is also related with non-living things or inanimate objects, and apostrophe also is related with inanimate objects or non-living things. So now let us find out what is Anastrophe. Okay, so the next figure of speech is Anastrophe. Okay, so Anastrophe, right, is a figure of speech where the normal order of the words is reversed by the poet for greater poetic effect. Okay, so Anastrophe, as I said, is what, right? So here in this figure of speech, that is Anastrophe, the normal order of the word is reversed. Okay, so even we can say inversion of the sentences is known as Anastrophe. So let us write it down and try to understand it. Here the normal order of the order of the words is reversed, right? Normal order of the word is reversed to give a greater poetic effect, or to suit the purpose of the poet, or to suit the purpose of the poet. Okay, so this is known as Anastrophe. Anastrophe simply means the normal order of the words is reversed. Normal order of the word is reversed. That means usually when we read a normal sentence, we can understand when it is reversed. So I'll give you one example. We the bird betray. Example is, we the bird betray. Okay, so we the bird betray, that means we the bird betray. Do you find this sentence normal or appropriate? No. Why? Because here the order is changed. Why the order is changed? To suit the purpose of the poet, or to give a greater poetic effect to the poem. So actually the normal order of this sentence should be, we betray the bird. actually it should be we betray the birds. Okay, we betray the birds. So this should be the actual order, but here it is, the order of the words is reversed or changed. So when such thing is done, it is known as Anastrophe. Okay, so I hope so both the figure of speech, that is apostrophe and Anastrophe, is clear to you. If you are given the word apostrophe, here it is P, apos, so that means we can relate it with personification. Again, personification is related with inanimate objects or non-living things. In the same way, apostrophe is also related with inanimate objects or non-living things. So Anastrophe means what? So again we can remember simply that there is a change in the order of the words, or the normal order of the word is reversed. When such thing is done, the figure of speech used is Anastrophe. Okay, so let us proceed further. Okay, so let us proceed further. Again, I need to tell you, all of you, that again many a times I have already told you that your grammar part, right, whether it is your transformation of sentence, direct, indirect speech, or anything, whether it is your figures of speech, right, so it is similar to your maths. In maths, once if you are taught the sums or the method, you need to practice it on your own to get the clear understanding of it in detail. Over here also I am just giving you one example to make you understand it, but if you want to get the clear understanding of it, you need to practice it, right? You are having a lot of poems in your syllabus, so just go through the poems lines and try to understand it, right, in more detail. Okay, so that is what I need to tell you. The next figure of speech which we will see today is, let us check it out. Okay, so that is euphemism. Okay, so 8, 9, 10 we have done. So this is going to be our 11th figure of speech. Euphemism. Okay, okay. Euphemism. So euphemism means what? So here the poet refers to the harsh facts in a milder way, right? Euphemism means what? So in the poem, if the poet refers to the harsh fact, cruel facts in a very mild way, then this is the figure of speech used over there, right? So I'll write it on the board. Here the poet refers to the harsh facts, right? Harsh facts means cruel facts. Okay, harsh facts in a mild way. Okay, in a mild way, right? So whenever the poet uses right? Or whenever the poet refers to the harsh facts or the cruel facts in a mild way, the figure of speech used over there will be euphemism. So we'll take example of that to understand it. Okay, example is, he passed away too early, right? We'll just take an example. If a death takes place, right, passed away means it is usually related with death. Okay, so this figure of speech is usually used in the context of death. So I will write down over here in the bracket also, used in the context of death, right? So euphemism is a figure of speech which is used in the context of death. Okay, so again we all know that death is something which is very difficult for the people to bear, right? And again it is extremely painful for the people. But if a death takes place at someone's place, and we all know that other people go over there, so if a person comes and says he passed away too early, right? So again the death, which is a harsh fact, is said in a very cruel way. Again, if I talk in Gujarati, if I say in Gujarati, right? So if someone comes at a person's place where the death has taken place, and if he comes and says, "Wo vela vaya gaya hai na," right? So we can, when the harsh fact is said in such a mild way, the figure of speech used over there is euphemism, right? So I hope so you can understand it. So harsh facts, when it is said in a mild way, the figure of speech used is euphemism. Okay. Again, another example, was called home, and is in a better place. Okay, was called home, is in a better place, and is in a better place. So here it means, was called home means, right? So that means God, right, has called the person. That means the person is dead and is in a better place. Again, the harsh fact, was called home, right? A fact related to the death is expressed in a very mild way. So again the figure of speech is euphemism. So I hope so euphemism is clear to you all. The next figure of speech which we will study today is tautology. Okay, so now let us try to understand what tautology is. Okay, so tautology is a figure of speech where there is unnecessary repetition of words that have a similar meaning. Okay, so let us write it down on the board and try to understand it. Here there is unnecessary repetition of words having same oblique similar meaning. Right, so if you are going through a poem, if you are reading a poem, and if you find words, right, different words having same or the similar meaning, it is said to be tautology. So again, unnecessary repetition of words having same or the similar meaning. Okay, having same or similar meaning. So when this type of thing is found in a sentence, the figure of speech used is tautology. So let us take one example to understand that. Example is, it was a dull and gloomy night. It was a dull and gloomy night. So here you can find out the word dull and gloomy. It means one and the same, right? Dull means dark, gloomy even means dark. So when there is unnecessary repetition of words, right? Unnecessary repetition of words having same meaning. So gloomy and dull, they both have a same meaning, right? So when this type of sentences are given, the figure of speech used is tautology. Okay, again sorry for this word, it is repetition. Okay, it is REPE, repetition. Okay, so the figure of speech repetition has a different word, and repeating of words, that is repetition. So unnecessary repetition of words. Okay, so that is a different word, right? So I hope so the example is clear to you all, right? Next is marks of weakness. Next one, again for tautology, marks of weakness, marks of woe. Again we can find the two different words, that is weakness and woe, which means the same, right? So again we can find a word, sentence where we are having two different words, right, having the same meaning. So this can be said as unnecessary repetition of the words having the same meaning. So when such kind of sentence is there, the figure of speech used is tautology. Okay, so that's it. I hope so that you are able to understand what is euphemism. Euphemism means harsh facts which are expressed in a mild way. Again, it is used in the context of death, so that is euphemism. Tautology means unnecessary repetition of words having the same or similar meaning. So now let us proceed further and try to understand other figures of speech. Okay, okay. So the next figure of speech which we'll study today is antithesis. Okay, number 13. It is antithesis. So earlier the figure of speech which we had seen, that was tautology, wherein two different words having the same meaning is repeated in the sentence. So therefore we can say that there is unnecessary repetition of words having the same meaning. So therefore the figure of speech over there was tautology. The next figure of speech is antithesis, right? So this is exactly opposite to that. Here in this figure of speech, that is antithesis, opposite words or contrasting ideas are used for greater poetic effect. Here opposite words or contrasting ideas are used for greater poetic effect. Okay, so how to remember antithesis is that in antithesis the opposite words or contrasting ideas, contrasting also means opposite, so contrasting ideas are used in the same line for greater poetic effect. So when opposite words are used, the figure of speech used is antithesis. So we'll take example for that. Example: life is full of hope and despair. Okay, life is full of hope and despair. So again, if we find out the words full of hope, a person who is very positive always remains hopeful. Despair is opposite of hope, which means the person who has lost hope or a person who is hopelessness, right? So that person is known as, or is said to be in despair, right? A person who doesn't have any kind of hope. So when in a sentence, if the opposite words are used for a greater poetic effect, the figure of speech used is antithesis. So hope and despair is opposite word and therefore it is antithesis. Next example is upward and downward thy motion rest. Okay, again you can find it out over here, right? The opposite words upward and downward are used in the single line or a sentence, and as I have already told you right now, that when the opposite words are used in the same sentence for poetic effect, the figure of speech is antithesis. Okay, so I hope so this figure of speech is clear to you all. Now let us move to the next figure of speech, right? Again we'll take a similar kind of figure of speech. First we talked about tautology, wherein two different words having the same meaning was used. Next is antithesis, again where the two opposite words or the contrasting ideas are used. Now the next figure of speech is oxymoron. Okay, the next figure of speech is oxymoron. So here two opposite or contradictory qualities describe the same thing. Two opposite or contradictory two opposite or contradictory qualities, right? Here this word is difficult, opposite or contradictory qualities, right? So two opposite or contradictory qualities describe the same thing. Okay, describe the same thing, describe the same thing at one and the same time, at one and the same time, at one and the same time. Okay, so usually when the two opposite or contradictory qualities describe the same thing, right? We need to understand this. Describe the same thing at one and the same time. The figure of speech used is oxymoron. Here two opposite words or contrasting ideas were used. In oxymoron, two opposite or contradictory qualities are described. I'll give you the example to make it more clear. Example is the loving mother punished her child for lying, Lying, lying. Okay, so why this sentence, or why the figure of speech used in sentence is oxymoron? Again, as I had explained you, when the two opposite or contradictory qualities. So what are the qualities over here? One side we are saying that the mother is loving, so the loving mother, right? If he is saying that the mother is loving, so do you think that the mother will punish the child? No. But here the opposite thing is done, right? The loving mother punished her child. So two contradictory qualities are written together in the same sentence. The loving mother punished her child for lying. So loving and punished, so they both are contradictory qualities in the same sentence, described for the same thing or person, that is mother, and therefore the figure of speech used over here is oxymoron. Okay, so I hope so this figure of speech is clear to you, right? So let us see the another figure of speech, that is climax. Okay, so I'll rub the board. Okay, so the next figure of speech which we will see today is number 15, that is climax. Right, usually we have seen in the movies that at the end we can see the climax of the movie. So climax means what? So here the words are arranged in increasing order of importance. Here the words are arranged in increasing order of importance. Okay, so when in a poem, if the sentence is such where the words are given in a increasing order, the words are given or arranged in a increasing order, the figure of speech used over there is climax. So let us see the example for that. The bird has grown, the bird had grown blossom. The bird had grown blossom. Okay, the bird had grown blossom. So here bird means what? Usually we see the flowers. So the early phase or the early stage of it is known as bird, which is known as kali. Okay, the bird means the early phase of that. After it is in the form of bird, it grows and at the final stage it blossoms. So here the increasing order is expressed, and therefore the figure of speech is climax. Okay, the figure of speech is climax. Next is next example is let a man have his obligation means responsibility, obligation to himself, his family, right? Let a man have his obligation to himself, his family, his country and his God. His country and his God. Okay, so here you can find obligation means the responsibility. So always a person has a responsibility or obligation of himself first, then family, then country and his God, right? That means here the increasing order is mentioned in the line, and therefore the figure of speech used is climax, right? So whenever it is in the ascending order or in the increasing order, the figure of speech is climax. And at the end, the last figure of speech for today, that is anti-climax, right? So anti always means opposite. We have seen antithesis also, right? So anti-climax is exactly opposite to climax. So here it is the increasing order. In anti-climax it is the opposite of climax, right? So here the words are arranged in, I'll write it down here. The words are arranged in decreasing order. Okay, so here it was increasing order, here the exactly opposite of it, which is decreasing order. So we'll see one example for that also to understand it in a proper or a better way. Okay, example is, I saw pale kings, princess and warriors. Okay, so I saw pale kings, princess and warriors. Again we know that kings are always at the top, then comes the son of the king, that are the plural form of prince, that is princess, and the warriors, they are at the bottom level. So the sentence contains decreasing order, and when there is such arrangement where the words are arranged in the decreasing order, the figure of speech used is antithesis. Okay, the figure of speech used is antithesis, right? So this is about antithesis. Okay, so I think so that this is enough for today, right? I'll end my today's session or lecture over here, and the remaining figures of speech we'll discuss in the last lecture. So after this we'll have our last session or lecture for figures of speech, in which I'll discuss all the other remaining figures of speech. So I hope so the figures of speech which we have discussed today is clear to you all, right? If you are having any kind of doubt, you can ask in the comment section. Okay, so till then, take care of yourself, stay healthy and stay safe. Bye everyone, take care of yourself.